All right, everyone, welcome to the Game Changer Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay. And this week on the show, we have Rafael Cortez. Rafael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, for the people who don't know you, could you give a little bit of background on how you got involved in real estate and kind of how that's led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I started in real estate. I got into real estate back in 2009. I had other businesses. I used to be a firefighter. I launched my first business in non-emergency medical transportation back in 2007 and left the fire department. And so entrepreneurship has always been a thing. And so I wanted to diversify a little bit on the income side of things, and I was like, all right, cool. I used to work construction in high school, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about real estate investing because I knew how to swing a hammer. And so I went into flipping in 2009, and I found out through the first few flips that I liked wholesaling better. And that kind of became the end of the story right there, as far as how I landed in it, and decided to just plant the roots
Yeah.
on that side of it. So yeah, it's interesting, man. But I kind of started backwards. I started flipping, and then I got into wholesaling.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, wholesaling back in 2009, 2010, I mean, there was a lot of people watch. So, how were you going about finding deals that actually had equity in
Oh, dude. I mean, good question. Now we have a lot of tools, right? Like you can go in, you can
them?
cross-reference equity, you can pull lists, you can mass, communicate with people, and I mean, it's just a lot friendlier when it comes to the marketing side. But back in 2009, I mean, there was a handful of things that you could do if you were like you know ahead in the game. Pay per
Mm,
click was one of the things that you could do. So something very interesting happened though. Like when I started, I was door knocking. I was pulling lists from
mhm,
title companies, cross referencing, and kind of seeing who had equity based on the info they gave me. So not a lot. And I would put together
mm,
20 to 30 houses a day that had equity, and I would go door knock and start hitting those pre foreclosure leads, tax liens, yeah, that type of stuff.
mm,
Which is pretty interesting because that stuff still works. It still works today. So if you're looking at getting started, elbow grease is always going to be one of the lower barrier to entry points.
mhm,
And I mean, I did a lot of stuff doing that. After a while, I sold the business. I had a transportation business at that point while I was kind of getting my feet wet and the whole thing. And then I saw an email that came through my inbox. Sean Terry, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Sean Terry
mhm,
was looking for an acquisitions guy. So he's one of the OGs in the mentorship space. And we live in I mean, so he's all here in the county. So um the sends out an email looking for an acquisitions guy, and I was like, all right, cool. I was in the process of selling my transportation business. So I was like, all right, cool. I sold the business, and I get a few months later I get a call back from Sean. He's looking for an acquisitions guy. I was like, all right, if I want to learn this thing, do it the right way, this is a good spot to start. And at
mm,
that point, I was really looking more into going down the wholesaling route as opposed to the fix and flipping route, because I
mhm.
saw the assignments I was paying. So it just made sense. Yeah.
Gotcha. What is so you did end up working with Sean for a while, or?
Yeah, I did. I did. I got hired, and with him, we had a really good conversation. At first, and I told him I could guarantee him a year of me being there in acquisitions. It's like I'm gonna commit because he didn't want to hire somebody and then lose them. I was like, I
Yeah.
get it. I ended up staying 3 years in the company. So during that interim, I mean, I got exposed to the mentorship side of things. I started speaking on stage and about acquisitions, how to negotiate deals, and that type of stuff,
Mm,
which just opened up a whole new side of I guess or perspective in the business, right? Because I was doing playing in a lot of different ways in the same real estate space.
Sure.
So yeah, I did that for a few years and then branched out and did my thing. Now I own an active real estate wholesaling business, fix and flip business. I'm a real
Mhm.
estate broker in Phoenix, so I own a brokerage as well. And my background, I'm an organizational psychologist, so I do a lot of consulting and mentorship on business and processes.
Okay.
So they all at the end of the day, they all kind of talk to each other. But
Mhm.
you always start. It's pretty interesting to start a journey and not know where it's gonna head. A couple
Mhm.
years down the road because you come across opportunity that you didn't even register. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What was something that you felt like you learned early on working with Sean that, like, if you didn't learn that, it may have taken you years to figure that out? Like, if you had to pick one thing.
Oh man. I would say tenacity.
Huh.
It's something that I feel like it was dormant because I wasn't really in the tenacity for negotiations and sales and going after it
Mm.
was a thing. Like for example, the business that I built was basically B2B, right? So what I had to do was I had to pursue contracts with the state, and if I had the contracts, they would just feed the customers, right? So
Mhm.
I had to just be uh, you know, I during a period of about 8 years, I had to do maybe 7 or 8 closings, right, really good closings where locked up contracts, as
Mhm.
opposed to being across the table from a seller 5 times a
Mhm.
day. so
Yeah.
so that, I mean, rejection kicks in. I wasn't used to being rejected. Firefighter, everybody loves a firefighter when they show up, right? It's like, okay, firefighter's gonna save us. Usually cops is a different story. And we used to joke, like, about that all the time. I have a lot of cop friends, and so you're not used to that rejection. You're not used to that. The whole why am I doing this
Mhm.
question. And it's something that, I mean, I started getting punched onto the throat real quick.
Mhm.
One, he had a way bigger budget than I had, for marketing, so I started getting placed in front of on average, I was going on about 25 face-to-face appointments a week.
Wow.
So, I mean,
Okay.
that's insane, right?
Yeah.
Now that we see it, we think about it, it's like, man, that's a lot. I mean, it's a big, that thing's gonna, it's gonna shorten your learning curve by about 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and to give you a little bit of context on that, like the first week I went out, I locked up six deals in the first week, right? I came back victorious. I was like, yes, I got this. They all fell through. I was, offering like 2 cents below retail. I just didn't know what I was doing. On that note, man, I mean, I was flipping and doing that stuff, well, but when it came to the negotiation side and the wholesaling side, it was a different story. It was like,
Yeah.
so that took some adjustment, and I feel like the lesson of tenacity was loud and clear. Is like, you
Mm.
can't succeed if you're not tenacious, right?
Mm.
You can't make an impact if you're not tenacious. You can't evolve and grow if you're not tenacious about whatever it is that you're doing.
Mhm.
So I feel like that's the first time where I really got um, tested I feel like from a purpose standpoint.
Mm.
Physically, I mean, at the fire department, you get tested all the time, right? It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
you're pushing the envelope, you're lifting heavier, you're carrying all this gear and then going into burning building. Like, that's one way of doing it.
Mm.
But the mental game is a whole different a whole different challenge, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of the biggest things that I was able to just put in my belt, going through all that repetition.
What do you think? You said, like, the mental game there. So, like, what did you use, or what tools did you use personally to be able to, like, stay tenacious and keep going after it despite all that
Yeah,
rejection and all those things that were happening against you?
that's a good question. As far as tools, I I mean, I went back I went back to school for psychology, just because
Mhm.
I wanted to have a better understanding. And it came from like, at that point I already had the business going, and I didn't really need to go back to get a degree or anything, but I wanted to understand myself better. I wanted to understand
Mhm.
people better. So psychology was the route. Studying psychology was a big thing.
Mm,
Um, I went back and got a couple of master's degrees on that, and the last one being on organizational psychology, which is putting the whole systems and people together. But through that process, I came across behavioral profiles, right? So if you want to think practical psychology,
mhm,
thinking DISC, for example, understanding DISC to the point where you're a walking assessment. You can see somebody, and based on their tonality, based on how they communicate, based on their demeanor, you can body language, right? You can figure out what type of mental algorithm they have. I mean, that is an incredible tool for communication.
mhm,
So as far as staying tenacious, that helped me because it gave me a better understanding of when people are pissed off at me and they're screaming at me,
mhm,
or they're upset about the offer, they're whatever. It's one, I had to understand where they were coming from. What are their natural triggers, their natural behaviors? How are they
mhm,
wired, right? And it's pretty insane, man. But we are wired a certain way. We
mm,
come out of the box wired a certain way, right? And then we through classical conditioning or experiences, we start to adjust that behavior.
mhm,
And but when you understand, both aspects and why people react the way they do, it's really hard to take it personal. So to
yeah,
me, when I was getting, I guess, feeling it hardest was when I took it personal. I was like, man, this person's screaming at
mhm,
me, and like, I'm no good.
mhm,
And at the end of the day, I'm just a situation. But understanding, the way they process just opened up for better communication, and that led to easier conversations. It led to easier negotiation,
mm,
easier discovery combos where I'm really finding out what they really need to solve, right? As opposed to, hey, listen, I'm following the script and all that
yeah,
stuff. So I feel like that is the basis of everything else. So if you dial that in, and you're in the
mhm,
people business, which we're all in the people business,
mhm,
you're going to have a better process of getting to whatever outcome you want to get to, right? Just
yeah,
from a pure, perspective understanding.
mhm.
So yeah, I mean, that was incredible.
So, you were talking a bit about like this and behavioral profiles, right? So, like a lot of people, like, I mean, I've read about them, right? But I mean, implementing them in real time when having a conversation with someone is like a
Yeah.
whole new level, right? So, how are you able to get yourself from like, I guess, knowing that knowledge about DISC or behavioral profiles to really owning it and be able to do it like live in a conversation with someone?
I actually teach a class to my students on practical psychology, but it's pretty crazy, man, when you see it, and you
Mhm,
you start going through, like, the modalities. For example, somebody who's and disc is broken down into four tiers, right? You have your drivers, you have your interactives, you have your supportive, and you have your analytical profiles.
mhm,
And what happens is that we have the ability to combine those subsets because we have a primary and a secondary. So you're
mhm,
gonna recognize somebody, and then it's like, this person is mostly analytical, their secondary is gonna be something else. But when you start to be able to mix the profiles, is when you can get a pretty decent idea
mhm,
of, now, not like you're not going to read their mind, but you're gonna get a decent idea of how they can potentially react to a given situation, right?
mhm,
So, okay, this person might be open to something like this, or this is not the moment to talk about this, because their mo is to, when they're upset, is to just shut down. And
ah,
that's what I'm talking about. And it's like, I mean, I see a guitar in the background.
mhm.
You play guitar, right? You
I'm
said.
actually at an Airbnb right now.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So I saw a guitar in the background, but it's the same thing. It's like when you pick up an instrument, right? And then you have an algorithm. You have, okay, like this is a set of chords that play well together. It's the same thing
Mhm,
with behavioral
mm,
profiles. And once you understand that, I mean, you can really pick it up in conversation within a matter of seconds.
mm,
um, Mirroring isopraxism is another thing, that plays well. I'm going to give you, like, for example, one take on mirroring. Right? People say,
mhm,
mirror the person that you're talking to, so you build rapport quickly.
mhm,
Man, it rubs me off the wrong way when you do that. It's just like, it's manipulative when you're trying to do something just to get something to, or somebody else to build
mm,
rapport in a fake way.
mhm,
um, but there's a really good way that you can use mirroring, to find out whether or not you're actually making a connection. And that's when they subconsciously, and unaware, um, start mirroring you. So, for example, if I want to see how engaged we are in a conversation, I'll lean forward, right?
Mhm.
When I'm teaching the class, and I get to a point in the training where, I'll be speaking to the room, and I'll
Mhm.
start scratching my head. I start going like this, and I do that for, I don't know, 5 seconds or something like that, and
Yeah.
then I roll into this, this portion. When people start mirroring you, means that you have subconscious rapport, right?
Mhm.
And I'll look at the audience, and there's always 5 to 10 people in the audience doing the same thing, just like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So it's because they're engaged in the conversation. So there's
Mhm.
ways of understanding whether or not you're making a connection with somebody.
Mhm.
You can run all kinds of tests like Myers-Briggs, and all these, but they give you the answer. They don't necessarily show you how to identify somebody on the fly.
Right. Right.
That's why I love, DISC and the DISC profile. And there's a lot of books on DISC out there, but it's one of the I feel like one of the most concrete ways of understanding somebody's psyche in a very practical manner. So
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
So, we were talking a little bit offline how you're kind of a big systems and processes guy. So
yeah.
how is like what you've taken, like your organizational psychology, how does that feed into maybe some of the systems and processes that you build?
um Everything's methodical, right? Like you have to it feeds into one mistake that I see. Let me I guess backtrack a little bit here.
Mhm.
But one mistake that I see, and when I consult, I do, of course, I coach, I mentor, real estate wholesaling. So I
Mhm.
have that, but I also consult in different verticals, restaurants, gyms. It's all biz ops. So I consult
Mhm.
in biz ops. So one thing that I see is people will develop a role, and then just kind of, put a, somebody with a heartbeat on that role. But when you take it back and you look at behavioral profiles, like there's going to be a certain behavioral profile that will give you longevity in any
Mhm.
given role. Think about
Mhm.
longevity. How long is that person going to stay there? We have, subconsciously, we have this rhythm that we can adapt to for around 3 months before we hit burnout. So, for example, if you're a if you're a very, people driven person, you're an extrovert, and you just always like to be out there, and mingling and collaborating and all that stuff. You can land a gig in a cubicle, right? And you're going to be able to adapt to it. It's not a matter of, being smart or not being smart, or, you can land something like that. But if you're away from the thing that feeds you, you're think about it, you're adapting your mindset, your mental bandwidth, you're adapting that for 8 hours, and it's just like a muscle. It's
Mhm.
like your brain just went to the gym for 8 hours. How tired are you going to be? Right?
You're
Because
right.
you're literally adapting your natural behavior to comply with something that's not necessarily in your natural lane. So, I say that uh, to just, clarify, when we're developing, job roles, we have to think
Mhm.
about that. Like when we're
Mhm.
hiring, people and bringing people into, the business, we have to think about that as well. Okay,
Mhm.
what, this role, what does it require? Does it require somebody who's very detail oriented, somebody who's, able to talk to a lot of people? Does it require just more analysis, more, then you can hire, somebody accordingly, according for that role. Thinking about longevity, right? It's got nothing to
Mhm.
do, behavioral profiles, they have nothing to do with IQ or how smart you are. It's about how your behavioral modality is going to adapt to like staying on that track for a long time.
Yeah. Gotcha. So let's take maybe just so the people listening can understand, let's take a common position where people burn out in. Like let's just take real estate acquisitions, right? You get a lot of people who
Yeah,
start out, they're going real hard in it,
exactly.
and then like 3 months later they're burnt
Yeah,
out. So how would you approach that role to ensure that you put someone in there who's energized by it as
acquisitions
opposed yeah.
acquisitions is like the poster child of the difficult hiring process. Um, yeah, it's well, the thing that happens too with acquisitions. Think about your typical entrepreneur. right?
Mhm.
Your typical entrepreneur, they're usually very, self-driven, motivated. They have that tenacity in there. Listen, just give me a list, and this is my hit list, and I'll go hit it. It's like I'll handle it, right?
Mhm.
Your typical entrepreneur is kind of wired that way, and those are some of the biggest things that we look for in somebody who's in acquisitions. We want somebody
Mhm.
who's able to sell, somebody who's able to talk to people, somebody who's going to be self accountable, that type of stuff, right? We
Mhm.
don't care too much about like the detail portion of it. If you have a good process that can hold them accountable, that's where the systems and the processes come in.
Mhm.
If you have that, they're going to be okay. But acquisitions, one has a lot of rejection, so you got to have that thicker skin or that mentality where, listen, my ego has to be outside of this.
Mm.
Acquisitions tend to be a lot of high drivers or high D, directive personality, right?
Mhm.
Because they're in sales, they're always kind of front line. Think about your frontline people, and it's like your income revenue, generating roles are going to be right there. So they're normally, the ego tends to be higher, type of stuff. So there's a lot of things that can come into play, and I say this because I'm an acquisitions guy, right? So
Mhm.
I could relate very well to everything that was going on. I was like, man, I gotta, like, this conversation is just, I have to get super objective on the conversation. Nothing to hit me emotionally. Whatever happened here, I had to just become aware, and those were learned skills for me.
Mm.
I was good at the sales portion and going after it, with people, but understanding, right, that there were other things that I needed to work better at was a big thing. So when you're developing a role, for example, acquisitions, you're looking for somebody who's motivated, who's driven. Normally you have like a high D with a secondary I, because they tend to
Mhm.
be fast paced, and that secondary is very interactive, socially aware, right? They have tact with people, they're likable, they can relate quick, that type of stuff, which is your typical sales role. Now, those are two characteristics of entrepreneurs. So what happens a lot is like, oh, I'm an acquisitions guy, I'm going to go lock up a bunch of deals, and then, oh, you know what, I can do this by myself, I can be an entrepreneur. And then
Sure.
they dip and try to do their own things, hence the turnover on acquisitions. And then you also have the other side of the coin, where people want to get into that closing space, but they tend to be more introverted. They tend to be more, uh, you know, super analytical in the I don't want to make a mistake, side of things. And when you're in
Mm.
sales, I mean, mistakes are happening every 3 seconds.
Yeah.
You have to go back and rework them. That's all, and that's a burnout, factor as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, those are things, right, to consider as you're developing roles in any given business. But yeah, so acquisitions, and I actually have a matrix where we have preferential profiles, right? This is what we're looking for, and as far as the
Mhm.
traits and natural behaviors or strengths, for operations, or director of operations, which is similar to Dispo profile. We're looking for
Mhm.
DCs normally,
Mhm.
which is a driver analytical. And for lead generation, I look for ISs, so interactive or interactive
Mm.
supportives. They tend to have a lot of patience with people.
Mm.
They don't have to sell. Basically, they have to listen to somebody for long enough and do a quick enough discovery call to get them booked with an acquisitions guy. You see what I mean?
Ah. Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and the reason, and like the way that I'm going about all that stuff is I'm thinking longevity. I don't want to, like, if somebody's really good at acquisitions, but I mean, they're burned out, in a matter of 2 3 hours. Tired is not, it's not their behavioral lane. It's not going to last long. You know what I mean? It's just not sustainable in the long run.
Yeah.
And if it does, I mean, they're going to be miserable. It's, I mean, that to me is one of the biggest factors that we often, kind of forget about, right, when we're hiring. Is this person
Yeah.
going to last a long time in the role based on how they are and what the role requires?
So let's say you do get someone with the right profile, you put them in an acquisitions role. You said the second issue is that obviously they're kind of like an entrepreneurial profile, so they may want to go out and do their own thing. How do you create an environment for, I guess, you personally or for the people that you coach, how do you create an environment for that salesperson to make them want to stay around for 3 or 4 years as opposed to sticking around for 6 months or a year?
I I help them be really good in their lane. It's
Mm,
so I help them get really
mm,
good in their lane. For example, acquisitions. There's 6 stages to every business, right? You have the sourcing stage, you have the converting
mhm,
stage, you have the acquisition stage, the disposition or fulfillment, depending on what vertical you're in, and
mm,
then you have measuring and improving. So
mhm,
you have 6 stages there. Your acquisitions people, obviously, they're going to be in the acquisition stage, right? But a lot of times they don't care. They don't care about what's happening in lead generation. They don't care about what's happening in the conversion stage. They don't care. They don't give two rats about dispo. Like, I'm just locking up deals. So what I've done is like through the software and the CRMs and everything that I built, they're very
mhm,
very lane oriented. All the lanes talk to each other, but they talk to each other in an organizational way. They're tapped into the
mm,
deals for discipline and all that stuff, but they don't know all the details. So what happens is, like, they get really good at acquisitions, and they've been doing it for a year, 2 years, but they have no clue as to what's going on the dispo side and how we're able to hit 30,000 buyers in a matter of an hour, that type of stuff.
mhm,
It's not intentionally gatekeeping. It's just these are the lanes that we're working on, and when somebody's doing well in their lane, they don't really care about the rest of the process because that lane is paying them. You know what I mean?
sure.
So,
Yeah.
and there are people that are going to come and, like, they're going to venture out and try to do their own thing, and some make it and some come back, and it's just kind of how it works. Whenever somebody does try to do their own thing, though, I do everything in my power to just support them. I do,
Yeah.
because at that point, um, they're like, there's an itch that they have to scratch in order to be that employee that's going to come in and go the extra mile all the time. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
They have this thing going on. It's like, what if I do this? Every deal they get, 30,000 K spread is like, oh, that could have been my spread. And then, believe it or not, through time, I could be doing that alone. I could be like, it performance starts to drop. So you have to be very transparent on that.
mm. Transparent on, like, what exactly there?
Well, like the way that you support the team. For example, I've had guys,
Ah,
that they're in acquisitions. They come in and work with me, and I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna step down. I'm gonna do my own thing. Like, perfect. If there's anything I can help you with, let me know, bro. I mean, we'll collaborate. We'll JV deals if if you come across something good, send it over. I'm still flipping, right? And then they'll ask me questions. I have a community. I'll leave them in the community, and they'll start to ask about dispo, and I'm thinking I've had that happen three or four times
mhm,
so far with different people, right? And out of those, one of them stayed in the space. One of them
mm,
came back. The other two just moved on to something else. Um, but
mm,
um, but it's important to have the ability to give them that, to support them that way, to empower them that way,
mm,
because when you have an employee that's thinking about how they can do better on their own, they're not going to put in the same amount of effort to your deals, to your marketing
mm.
ad spend. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If you're spending 10, 15, $20,000 a month, and your cost per lead is $450, like, you want it to be decently treated. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. W
So,
w
yeah.
what does your wholesaling part of your business look like today?
It's I have two acquisitions, mm, the transaction coordinator,
Mhm,
Dispo, and I have two VAs that help me on the marketing on the Dispo side,
mhm.
a lead manager, and then I outsource to a cold calling agency and lead generation services for PPC. Yeah,
Okay, gotcha. Cool.
yeah.
And
Marketing
then, like,
avenues are marketing avenues are cold calling and PPC mainly. We'll do some direct mail
huh,
and up until about 3 months ago, we're still doing a lot of door knocking, and then we just tapered back from that a little bit because
huh,
it's possible to have teams, but it becomes it's a project to coordinate teams and manage them, especially when you're doing virtual. I do virtual nationwide wholesaling,
okay.
so yeah, so it's just tougher when you're virtual.
You were doing door knocking all in different markets than where you are?
Not all of them. We had two markets. We had Jacksonville, and then we rolled out Vegas.
Huh,
We rolled out Dallas, and
okay.
uh, and the one that made it the longest was Jacksonville.
Really?
And yeah, but you got to have somebody like boots on the ground, like somebody managing the team on the ground, in
Yeah.
order to be effective. We had it in Maricopa County. I mean, here we were killing it too. We had a team of 6 people just going out, and they were out there all the time, so we were doing really good with that. And we started tapering back. Scalability is a thing. You know what I mean? Like, to scale
Mhm.
something, it's a lot easier to scale PPC. It's a lot easier to
Yeah.
scale and tap into new markets with cold calling, believe it or not.
Mm.
So yeah, it's still, and if you have a good process, a good system in place, you can tap into all these markets, and it's like it looks the same on this side. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's interesting. You're the like, I mean, years ago, people used to talk about they were doing like nationwide or multiple markets cold calling, but I actually haven't heard anyone recently. A lot of people are doing PPC multiple markets, but what's your
yeah.
approach cold calling in multiple markets?
I have a company. It's called direct to seller leads.com.
Hmm.
It's a turnkey. Basically, I give them, hey, listen, I want leads in Jacksonville.
Hmm.
And they'll send me 1 to 2 leads a day in Jacksonville. But they do the skip tracing. They do the. I mean, that's the easy button. There's
Yeah.
like we do have specialized lists, but we'll send them sometimes like, hey, we have this list, and they'll handle the skip tracing, they'll handle the dialer, the everything.
Yeah.
So we're paying for the leads, not the VA,
Hmm.
which I mean works well. And and when we are cold calling, I mean, we do have that integrated again with the software and all that stuff. So we do have, some power dialer campaigns that go out, but those are in my VAs, like my internal team, my lead generation team will jump on those.
Hmm.
But you're talking, they're smaller lists, right? That we can hit.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have that. The process is source. I mean, like I was looking, like I was saying earlier, right? You source the leads. When we're talking about PPC, direct mail, any of that stuff, you're sourcing the lead. It's where
Hmm.
the bulk of the business is going to take its place, right? Like a lot of the heavy lifting happens in the sourcing. So if you source 1,000 records, you push them over to pre-qual, right, or the
Hmm.
conversion stage, um, through a lead manager. Out of those 1,000, you end up with 100. Out of those
Hmm.
100, you may end up with 10 in acquisitions. So it's a
Hmm.
way to keep my acquisitions real, right? Like I don't want to think that I have 1,000 leads for my acquisition guys. I want to be real about it. It's like, no, I have 10 leads out of this 1,000 stack, because we
Uh-huh.
source and converted and pre-qualified. So that's a process. I mean, we have on the sourcing side, we have that. We have a whole engine kind of, going and going through, digging through the noise,
Mhm.
filtering down to the few, right, that are going to make it to get an offer, talk about an offer on that.
Yeah. And but on the PPC side, is that going right to your acquisitions
Yeah,
guys,
that
or is
goes
that
straight.
also?
Good question. Yeah, good
Yeah.
question. That goes straight to my ax. That goes straight to acquisition guys. So it doesn't go through lead gen.
Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah. So there's that's that, and then no, direct mail leads. We still send them through the lead managers.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a few of them.
So you were mentioning too offline, like, and I'm a big GHL guy. I love GHL. You said you've built a lot of systems on GHL over the years. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, what's maybe an interesting one that you feel you've built in like the last year or two?
Well, the one I have right now, it's actually we just put it out, but I built a setup for years. I had a setup in Podio, and then I moved over to GHL. I
Mhm.
mean, night and day. And I
Yeah.
was like the biggest Podio guy ever, right? Like you can drag me away, or tear me away from Podio. But it's just automations, right? So they have the thing about building systems, right? It's not like, okay, now you have SMS, now you have email, you have all the bells and whistles, but the way they operate, the way they connect is what makes a difference, right?
Hmm.
As far
Hmm.
as like what I do now, and I built, it's called the REI Pulse CRM, and what I do now is, like, based off of the way that I run the business, it's exactly how the CRM flows, right? So
Mhm.
it speaks the same language. I mean, I have the communities and everything in there, but GHL just allows me to have everything in one single box. So I literally turn the mentorship program, the CRM, the contract, everything. It's in one login, which just makes it a hell of a lot easier than to have
Mhm.
bazillion tabs in there,
Yeah.
and following like the same process of sourcing, converting, acquisitions, dispo, measuring, and improving on KPIs and uh, and best practices.
Yeah. What's like maybe is there a specific like automation or something that's interesting that you feel like you've built recently in GHL?
Yeah. Well, I had automations in there for automatic follow-ups, but like one, for
Mhm.
example, that's in there now. I mean, we started leveraging AI like everybody else and their mom. The So AI, I mean, it's the best. Um, so what we're doing right now, for example, I'll give you this has been a game changer lately in the ROAS
Mhm.
and ad spend, like marketing spend.
Mhm.
So I have three. We have SOPs for everything. SOPs for the acquisitions, for dispo, for lead gen, and all that
Mhm.
stuff. The SOP, for example, when a lead comes in to acquisitions and they landed in acquisitions, a bit pre-qualified, my acquisition calls them. Depending on it's within 5 minutes or within 30 seconds if it's a PPC lead,
Mhm.
and they'll call them right away. They'll reach out, call and text. They don't get an answer. They'll wait a couple hours. They call and text again.
Mhm.
But they call and text and then they leave a voicemail, right? So there's three each time. They do it twice. Each time it's the 3 points of contact. On the second time when we call, because I don't want them to get bottled up with just calling people who are giving us an answer, we roll them into an engagement sequence for follow up, right?
Mm.
So the engagement sequence peppers them for 72 hours, right? So we're just automatically reaching out to them. It's outside of the lead, the acquisition guy's radar. They don't have to worry about it because the system's doing the work. If
Mhm.
they don't answer, the system will roll them into a short-term follow-up sequence that's 7 days,
Mhm.
right? So we'll hit
Mhm.
them for the next 7 days and different type of messaging and a whole algorithm there. If they don't answer, it'll roll them into a long-term follow-up sequence that just stays with them for the entire year.
Yeah.
So we have that, and whenever they answer, all we're trying to do there, we're just trying to get an answer when somebody raises their hand. When they come back, it brings it back into the pipeline, notifies the acquisitions guy, and then we can reestablish the conversation. But that's been great in terms of recapturing the leads. Now, one thing that I did recently was roll AI into it, so when they answer back, the AI will pre-qualify it, find out if it's a cold lead, a warm lead, or a hot lead. If it's a cold
Huh.
lead, it will just recycle that into another follow-up sequence, right? If it's a warm lead, push it over to acquisitions or a hot lead. So now, I mean, we're the guys are talking to better qualified leads. But if you have a
Sure.
stack of 1,000, like I said earlier, you end up with a handful of people that are, yeah, I mean, they're in the pipeline, they're still being worked. I mean, the quality of the conversations just increases, the conversion increases. So that's one thing that I was able to do with it recently. AI helped quite a bit with it. On the
Yeah.
front end, I still have the lead managers have the initial conversation,
Mhm.
but on the recapturing through the text messaging, follow up sequences, and emails and all that stuff, I rolled out AI. Yeah, so that's pretty wild.
Wh- What is the criteria that the AI is using to determine when it's messaging them if it's cold, warm, or hot?
We go for the four pillars: condition, timeline, motivation, and price. So they're doing a similar kind of and of course tied into ChatGPT, so it's conversational and all that stuff. But they're doing
Yeah.
a similar type of pre-qualifying. Basically, they're having a similar conversation as the initial lead manager.
Huh. Yeah.
So it's almost like think of it as a pseudo discovery combo with them, right?
Mm.
Uh, oh yeah, we talked about it. It'll read the conversation, and we talked. It looks like you were asking for 560 or whatever. Have you had any changes on that? What's going on? They'll start digging in, for the condition, the timeline, the motivation, the price. Have you done any updates to the property since we last touch base? Yeah, and then of course, what's the timeline? What's the asking price?
Yeah.
So we do have a range there. If they're at retail or above, like we'll just okay, like we'll touch. It has a response for that, and then we'll touch base and we'll roll them into a 30-day sequence. So
Yep.
we'll touch base in a couple of weeks and kind of see where they're at.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to send something like that to acquisitions. The way that we're locking up deals is wholesale, creative financing, innovations, right?
Hmm.
But you
Hmm.
still got to have some type of equity in there. The property can't be listed for innovation. So if it's not listed, we can still talk about a creative financing approach, but we'll try
Hmm.
to dequalify all those or while they're having that conversation, like what doesn't work. And
Hmm.
so what it does is it pushes it over to a combo. So it gets two
Yeah.
acquisitions from a responded state. Now the acquisitions rep knows there's something there, right?
Right. Interesting. It's a
So
pretty like extensive conversation for the AI to have. I mean, it sounds like 4 or 5, maybe back and forth before it's
yeah,
fully passed over.
y-
Yeah.
yeah, and it's wild, man. When I was starting to work on that type of stuff, the I mean, just for them to recognize intentionality, like, man,
Yeah.
this is crazy. Like, all right, cool. So I started using intentionality on the algorithm there, for adding to a DNC and all that stuff. So you can get really crafty, and really what happens is as we're just going through daily ops and running through deals and stuff like that, we'll come in and okay, here's a new word, here's a new scenario. We just plug it in, right? And it
Yeah.
just starts to pick it up from there. So it's an ongoing improvement process. But yeah, I mean that's been a game changer.
Are you
Absolutely.
using the ChatGPT integration, or are you using the new like native AI thing that GHL put out?
No, we're using the native one. We're testing the native one.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's going on well. I was talking to a couple of guys. We're gonna roll out an AI inside smartphone here pretty soon. I was talking to Jordan. He's the
Uh,
owner of Smartphone. It's a really good power dialer. So we're connected with that inside the system. So we're gonna have an AI in there. And I was talking to Steve Tratton too about plugging something in along the lines of like, because they develop really good AI conversational.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so that type of stuff. I mean, I don't know. It's I think it's crazy, man. They were talking about, like Steve was talking about, having fully functional AI for acquisitions probably mid-year.
That's
Yeah, I
pretty
was like,
wild.
man, yeah, that
Yeah.
is pretty wild. Yeah.
You just have 1,000 AI bots cold calling, and 10 of them
Dude, I'm
closing.
telling you, it's like, what stops you there? I don't know. It's a little scary.
Yeah. The question that came to mind while we were offline for a minute there is, obviously you said you consult with business not just in wholesaling and real estate, but also
Right.
different verticals. So what's maybe something that businesses bring you in? Usually businesses bring in a consultant when they either want to grow or they have a problem, right?
Yeah.
And what is one thing that you've seen really common recently that you walk in and like you see that if a business just maybe tweak this one thing, they could really skyrocket their performance?
Um, I don't know if it's gonna sound cliche, but the tendency to, especially I work with a lot of bootstrap entrepreneurs, a lot of bootstrap
Mhm.
businesses. So, and I was bootstrap, and so there's a biased passion there for for what it takes to get something going off the ground. Um, One thing that I see often is people will operate under the same ideas for longer than they need to. What I mean by
Mm,
that is for example, you have the entrepreneur who's really, they've hit success. They've been really good about you know I don't know, doing deals. We'll use real estate as an example. Doing deals, and then now they hired a bunch of people, and they're still very very close to the operation, right? That's one thing that happens, and this example, I mean, this transfers over to gyms, it transfers over to restaurants, but it's you're too close to it or stay too close to it, and you start operating under that same survival mode that had you going at first, and making
mhm,
you hit or helping you hit benchmarks and points of success. But the same mentality is still driving the business when you have a whole staff behind you. So what happens? There's a dissonance between you hiring what you need, your involvement in the business, micromanaging the business,
Mm,
and not gradually stepping back into building the systems and the processes so people can actually come in and operate under those. And I see that over and over again. It's like, yeah, you're supposed to do it this way. You're supposed to do it this way. Like, dude, if you hired somebody for this role, your role is to train. It's to train and make sure that your people are capable of doing the thing, and then trust them, right?
mm,
That whole trust factor, I think, is the one that keeps misfiring. That's where KPIs come in. I mean, elaborate scorecards and the rest of the bells and whistles that we look at as entrepreneurs. But the reason for all that stuff is to rewire our thinking as operators, right? At the end of
mm,
the day, you're still going to be tapped in, but you have to trust your team and be able to step back, not abandon the business, but be able to go into this almost like a coaching modality in the business. And it's a different level, it's a different type of behavior, it's a different type of the commitment that you're providing now, because what you're doing now is not, you're not doing the deal, you're empowering the team to do the
mm,
deal. You
mhm,
go from being the force to being a force multiplier.
mm.
And and that change is usually what's at a miss when I come in. It's like, the guys are not doing everything or not doing anything. They're doing things right. I'm like, okay, let's go back to the systems. Let's go back to the hiring process. Let's go back to
Mm.
your vision. Let's go back to what's in alignment with what you want to do, because at the end of the day, you're at the helm of the company. And um and and make sure that as the leader of the company, you're performing you're paying attention to the right areas, right?
Yeah. What do you think that are some of the maybe the top key things that people need to do to transition from being the force to being the force multiplier?
And documenting your processes, SOPs, standard operating procedures. I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing. People see it as a waste of time, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's not a waste of time. Even if you're a solo operator, document your SOPs. Document everything that you're doing, like the way that you do things in the business. Just
Mhm,
if it's through a bullet point document, fine, do that. If it's through a Loom, recording yourself on a Loom, which is great, by the way. I love that platform. Um, and just tracking everything that you're doing, because when you hire, like, yeah, you can bring somebody and train them to do something, but the minute they leave with all the knowledge in the 3 months of training that you gave them. When you
mhm,
create SOPs, you onboard somebody, you check their tenacity, you see how dedicated they are to the business, because they got to watch the damn videos,
mhm,
and then what you do is you become a Q&A source, as opposed to, I'm going to handhold you through this process and show you how to comp, show you how to run analysis on all these things, and spend all my time building you up. And because again, retention, we can't guarantee retention, right? So that's one of the first things that everybody needs to do. Even if you think that you don't need it right now, you do. Like, it's the thing that's going to give you that freedom.
yeah.
So when you have that in place and you start to hire, and I have this organizational matrix where everything's plugged into, um, at the end, the very last thing that you do is hire a director of operations,
Mhm,
because then that person is gonna be the freedom ticket for you. But you got to have
mhm,
the SOPs. You got to have the standard operation in place. And if you're not really good at documenting, have your people documented for you when you're going through them, when you're training them. Like, hey, listen, just document everything that you did, or in a video, show me how you're doing comps, right? And then you're gonna tweak that. You're gonna curate that into um, processes. So
yeah. I think one of the things that we did similar to what you were saying with creating SOPs is, we'd onboard and we'd have our acquisitions people on board and then we had SOPs. And then we'd record all the Zooms and then transcribe them and then say to ChatGPT, tell me all the questions they asked and all the answers that I gave. And now
yeah,
that's an FAQ, right? That you can just throw right
exactly. You
in
have
there.
an FAQ, and then you have a synthesized video there.
Yep.
So yeah, another thing that I love about GHL is go high level. It's we have all the trainings in there. So I mean,
Ah,
the same way that I build the coaching program, that I have the
mhm,
modules and the assets, resources, and everything. I have the same thing for my businesses. So I have the internal training for my wholesaling business. It's inside the sub account for my wholesale business, right? But
mhm,
we have that in there. Community channels for certain deals, kind of use it as a Slack, that type of
mhm,
stuff. So there's a lot of things that you can do when you have a platform that's solid. But yeah, I mean, uh, before you get, you can run your first 100 deals on a spreadsheet. I get it, but I mean, start documenting your process. How did you find the title company? Where did you leave money on the table? Have improvement sessions after you close a deal.
mhm,
That type of stuff, and turn those into a habit, because what happens is that your team is going to mirror that stuff. Your team is going to do
mhm.
it whenever you're not. Whenever you're on vacation, the team's going to still be doing the quality control, the quality checks, that stuff. Why? Because it's part of the SOP and the MO if you enforce it enough, right?
Yeah,
You get what you tolerate in business. And in anything, I think.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Besides putting SOPs in place, anything else you recommend for someone to move from, that stage of being really in the business to maybe working more on the business?
Yeah. Work on yourself.
Mm,
Work on yourself. I mean, there are certain things that just reset me, and I know that I couldn't do without. And they're non-negotiables, right? Like you're again, the maybe the need or the desire to go, 1,000 miles an hour every single day for 16 hours a day is going to be there. But you have to take a breather and work on yourself. Give yourself time to, one, have the ability to think, right, and process
mhm,
information. Journal. I mean, I journal on a regular basis. I'm sitting on my desk right now, and my journals here, and I carry that thing with me everywhere. So it's what it is. It's a mind dump, right? It's not. It just helps me think straight. It helps me clarify what the goals are, to remind myself like what the goals are.
mhm,
So that's one. Another thing for me is, I mean, I gotta work out, on a daily.
mhm,
If it's even a run, I'll do that. If not, I'll hit the gym. But when I'm doing that, I'm listening to audiobooks. That's my university time.
mhm,
So it's the working on myself. By the time 9 a.m. hits, I mean, I've already done volumes in terms of personal growth and clarity of thinking, and
mhm.
you're taking control of the day as opposed to just kind of chasing the day. You see what I
Mm,
mean?
mhm,
So that's been huge. I mean, I wasn't a big advocate for doing that stuff, just because I wasn't aware of how great it was,
mm.
how important it was to have that mental health portion.
What shifted your mindset around that?
Burnout at 28.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hard burnout, like to the point where I didn't want to go to the office. Like everything was just gloomy. I had this cloud of rain just walking with me everywhere I went, and I felt like crap, dude. I mean, I was always very very driven, very motivated, and I got to a point where I was doing a lot. I got exhausted, um, and yeah, I mean, it's just I hit burnout. I hit a burnout stage when I was 28, and I mean, that was just like the absolute like reality check that I needed at that point. I launched my
Mhm,
first business at 21, the transportation
mhm,
one,
mhm,
and I mean, now it's been 14 years since, but I picked up new habits. I started non-negotiables. I mean, I would go to the gym and kind of work out and do the thing, right? But it wasn't part of the the lifestyle, really.
mhm.
um and I'm not saying like everybody's got to go to a gym or you're going to suck at business. It's just you got to find something to reset, right? Whether that's, I
Mhm.
don't know, going for a swim or reading, whatever it is. Just find the your happy place.
Yeah.
um and hopefully it's something healthy. It's not
Sure.
like it's not like the bar where you drink 50 whiskeys a night.
Yeah.
But uh, like that stuff is needed, right? And it's I have the tendency to go into like grind mode, right? Like this is, I'm in
Mm,
hustle mode right now, and when I'm in under that, I mean, that thing can last weeks. I mean, I've been, because of the launch and everything we're doing with the CRM. I've been on that mode pretty much for the last, I want to say, month and a half.
Mm,
And when I'm on that, like I'm aware of it. I wake up and I'm fired up in the morning, and I go to late, bed super late because I'm, adjusting coding or doing whatever. But I have to have like safety checks along the way that, hey, listen, I
mhm,
got to go eat, I got to go work out, I got to go do this.
mhm,
So I have your support structure that, whether it's, a lifting buddy or your kids or, whatever, right? But
mhm.
it's important. You can't ignore that kind of stuff. You
Yeah.
can't ignore it because you'll get exhausted and then not last.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, we're getting close to
yeah,
the end here, and there's always 2 questions I like to ask
yeah.
at the end of the show. And the first is, what is the craziest or most uncomfortable situation that you have ever experienced in a real estate deal?
Um, a wholesale deal. I walked into a property. This is, I don't know, probably 2016. Uh, this guy was a doctor, or find out later that he changed his first name to Doctor. Doctor, I can't remember the last name, but he wanted to be called a doctor. He was that crazy. He wanted to be called a doctor, and so his legal name was Doctor, like Dr.
Yeah.
And he changed it from Will or something. Anyways, this is I find this out later because, on the phone we're talking. Oh, Doctor, what was his name? It started with a P. I can't remember. Anyways, I walk to his house. The guy opens the door and he just greets me in like very very tiny underwear, and that's all he's wearing. And dude, it's yeah. I mean, it was the house was a mess. One of those perfect wholesale deals where
Yeah.
the uglier, the messier, the stinkier, the more full of crap it is, the better. It was that. Um, so yeah, but it was, as far as feeling awkward, like I walk in, it was like, what the. And then we're walking because I still walk the property. I want to lock the deal up.
Sure. Of course. Yeah, of course.
It was like, all right, cool. I can probably take this guy. Like, I don't know if he gets frisky. Um, but I'm thinking, and he's like just walking with me the entire time, just in underwear, like through the house. I mean, it's just like, it's wild, man. Sometimes you, you just come across really weird stuff out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the final question I always like to ask is if you could go back in time, give yourself one piece of advice when you were looking for your first real estate deal, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
Um, think bigger.
Hmm.
Think bigger. And in all aspects, not just like the real estate deal. And I'm not talking just the amount of like the spread, right?
Mhm.
Um, but think like what I mean by think bigger is like leave room for the possibilities, right? Think
Mm.
like we don't know. I would always think it was a money issue with sellers, and then after years and of just trial and error and kind of figuring stuff out, is like, man, it's hardly ever a money issue. People are gonna like. I had that mentality. It was like, why would somebody sell me their property, for 60% or whatever? It was like there's repairs, there's convenience, there's stuff that they want that doesn't necessarily, the money, as long as they hit a mark, like it doesn't really matter, and gives us the opportunity, right, to create a win-win.
Mhm.
But I wasn't thinking big enough. My thought at the beginning was very limited, because I was
Mm.
still caught in my own ways of thinking, my own limiting beliefs, my own, limitations, or ways of seeing the thing, and my own perspective on why would somebody stop a deal. And I was thinking about all of that stuff, as opposed to how can I come in with a problem solving mentality and actually look for something that makes sense,
Mhm.
so we can both create a win-win, right? So that the idea of thinking bigger was something learned, definitely learned. Some people are just talented naturally, and it was like, yes, they come in and they have all the you know the natural gifts in place. But no, for me it was definitely a learned skill.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Rafael, if people want to reach out to you after the show, maybe they're interested in your CRM or, doing some coaching stuff with you. How can people go about getting in touch with you?
I'm really active on social media, so you can find me at Rafael Cortez CEO on Instagram. Shoot me a DM there. And then the mentorship, it's reiwholesaling.com. That's a website, reiwholesaling.com. And then if you want to check out the CRM, it's the Pulse REI CRM, or the REI Pulse CRM.com. The REI Pulse PULSE CRM.com. But yeah, I'm pretty active on social, so shoot me a message and we'll start a combo.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for being on the show. This is great.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.